Good morning, everybody. Glad that you are. Good morning, Jaden. Good morning, Ian. Good morning, Angel. Yes, happy Cinco de Mayo. It is Cinco de Mayo today, isn't it? Yesterday, May the 4th be with you. Today, Cinco de Mayo. Wonderful. What happened to Ian? Oh, yeah, wrong day. All right. Good morning, Donna. Good morning, Arlie. Glad that you guys are joining with me this morning. Brett, good to see you too this morning, buddy. Glad that everybody's here. Let's go ahead and get into the word for the day. And we are, of course, in the book of Job. This is a new book that we started. We just recently finished the book of Jeremiah, and now we are in the book of Job. So let me open with a word of prayer, and after that, we will continue on with our Bible reading. So, Heavenly Father, I thank you for each and every person who's joining us this morning as we read through your word, and we get to know you more. We get to know more about your character. We get to know more about who you are, Lord, and who we are, and how you and what you've created us to be. And God, I just pray that as we go through Job, that we would get a glimpse into your sovereignty over all things, Lord, your heart for the world, Lord, our lack of ability to understand things, and your complete and total ability to hold all things in your hands. Lord, I pray that through this book, our trust in you would grow, and our love for you would grow. And we love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Let's see. So yesterday we started in on the book of Job, and the book of Job, as I said yesterday, is a story about a man who is righteous, blameless, and upright, and then a lot of kind of bad things happen to him. And the book of Job deals a little bit with the question of why do bad things happen to good people, right? You've probably had that question put to you maybe by a Christian or a non-Christian, but why do bad things happen to good people? And we could talk about it in the converse as well, right? Or the inverse, I suppose. Why do good things happen to bad people? And I think in a lot of our minds, there's this idea that if we do the right thing, then we will get rewarded by God in some way. And so we have this kind of deal mentality that, hey, if I serve you, Lord, then you're going to bless me and do all these great things for me. And while that is kind of, I guess, the normal way things work, it's not a guarantee, and it's not necessarily right. And so I want us to, as we read through the book of Job, we must remember that Job is a balancer. And what do I mean by a balancer? I mean this. So Job, it lives inside of the wisdom literature. And so let me zoom in over here. So this is the wisdom literature in the Bible. So right here we have kind of the historical books: Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings, 1st, 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. These are the historical books. They're like narratives. They're like history books in the Bible. When we get to the book of Job, although it is a story of a man, it's less about the history and more about wisdom. And so Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon are what are known as wisdom literature. And so Proverbs lays out the patterns by which God sets up the world. And in Proverbs, we get a lot of, if you do this, this will happen kind of information, right? So one of the Proverbs that's in there that we know is like, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is older, he will not depart from it, right? Things like that. Or we're told to avoid the adulterous woman if we want to like live in success. And we're told about the virtuous woman in Proverbs chapter 31. And so we get a lot of, if you do this, you'll get this kind of information. And it's all based upon wisdom. And in Hebrew, the word for wisdom there is chokmah. Okay, chokmah is kind of what everything's based on. And so Psalms is kind of songs and things along those lines, but it's kind of based on that. But then we get Ecclesiastes and Job, and they sort of balance out this Chokmah kind of universe, right? Where while God has based the world on wisdom, and things generally work out that way. Like if you work hard, generally you're going to make money and be successful. But it's not a guarantee, and it's not something that God has promised. So I think some people misinterpret the book of Proverbs as a book of promises. The book of Proverbs is not a book of promises. It's a book of wisdom. It's a book of how God has set the world up and how you should live your life. But then Job balances this out, because Job gives us a man who is blameless and upright, who feared God, who did all the right things, and yet still he ends up being kind of bombarded, if you will, with all of this negative stuff in his life. And so this is a balance to the book of Proverbs, because if you're living a Proverbs-based life, you would say, hey, I've done all the right things, and yet these bad things are happening to me. Why are these bad things happening to me, God? You said in the book of Proverbs that if I did the right thing, then you would give me the right stuff. And the book of Job helps us to understand that when we do the right thing, we're not twisting God's arm. We're not manipulating him in any way. He doesn't owe us anything because we have served him, right? Everything that he gives us, as I said yesterday, is a gift. And it's something that we don't deserve. We don't deserve his goodness. We don't deserve his kindness. We get those things because of what Jesus has done for us on the cross. And the book of Job helps us to understand that even though bad things are happening in our lives, they are still a part of God's good plan. God still loves us. God's still sovereign. He's still in control. But that, it's all right. The book crew is here organizing my books still. So if you hear some noise, that's what they're doing. This is Maryland. Some of you guys know Maryland. So, so the book of Job helps balance that out. And then when we get to the end of the book of Job, we basically get to God saying, Job, I love the universe more than you do, and you have no capacity of understanding how things are working. And so even though in your small, limited capacity, you don't understand, or you may not even like what's going on in your life, trust me that I'm good, and what's happening is for your good and the good of the unfolding plan of salvation on the planet. So hopefully that explanation made some kind of sense. It wasn't just kind of rambling there. But that's Job's place in the wisdom literature. It's a balance to Proverbs, and it's a balance to Psalms and some of the other kind of Chokmah based literature. And then in Ecclesiastes we got Hebel, right? So Chokmah and Hebel. Hebel is like the smoke that goes on. In the book of Job, we get this kind of like what's going on type stuff. So, all right. So chapter 2. Here we go. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord. And remember, this Satan in the Hebrew it's the Satan, and so it's not, as the book of Job was written, it was not known. Satan was not known like personally. Nobody in the Hebrew times would have known as a character named specifically just Satan. They would have known him as the Satan, which just means the accuser, or the one who's accusing Job. So there's somebody here before Job who's accusing him. And they came to him to present themselves before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where have you come?" And the Satan, I'm just going to say the Satan, answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it." And the Lord said to the Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There was none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. He still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without reason." Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin. All that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, he is in your hand. Only spare his life." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with loathsome sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took a piece of broken pottery to scrape himself while he sat in the ashes. Then his wife said to him, "Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die." But he said to her, "You speak as if one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil?" And all this Job did not sin with his lips. And this is an amazing passage, right? We see Job having the correct perspective towards God. That God, even though bad things are happening in Job's life, Job still recognizes God as good and continues to worship him as a good and loving God. Even though Job doesn't quite understand what's happening, he still continues to have faith in God. Now, when Job's 3 friends heard of all the evil that had come upon him, they came, each from his own place: Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. And they made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him, and they raised their voices and wept, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads towards heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. After this, Job opened his mouth, and he cursed the day of his birth. And Job said, "Let the day perish on which I was born, and the night that said, a man is conceived." By the way, as we read through the book of Job, so up until this point, this was all sort of like narrative. The rest of the book of Job is poetry. The entire book of Job is a poem, which is pretty incredible. So it's 42 chapters of poetry, much like the book of Psalms or the book of Proverbs. It's Hebrew poetry. And through this poetry, they're able to tell this story. And so I just think that's incredible. I don't know Hebrew well enough to read it in Hebrew, but I'm working on it because I think it would be a beautiful thing to read this book and the Psalms and others in the Hebrew language. So my Hebrew is not really that great. My Greek's much better than my Hebrew, and even that's not awesome. Let the day perish on which I was born, and the night that said, a man is conceived. Let that day be darkness. May God above not seek it, nor light shine upon it. Let gloom and deep darkness claim it. Let clouds dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. That night let thick darkness seize it. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year, and let it not come into the number of months. Behold, let that night be barren. Let no joyful cry enter it. Let those curse it who curse the day, who are ready to rouse up Leviathan. And Leviathan is something that we're going to talk about later on in the book of Job. Pretty awesome. Possibly a dinosaur. I'll let you decide. Let the stars of its dawn be dark. Let it hope for light, but have none. No, nor see the eyelids of the morning, because it did not shut the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide trouble from my eyes. Why did I not die at birth? Come out from the womb and expire. Why did the knees receive me, or why the breasts that I should nurse? For then I would have lain down and been quiet. I would have slept, then I would have been at rest. With the kings and the counselors of the earth who rebuilt ruins for themselves, or the princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver, or why was I not as hidden stillborn child, as infants who never see the light? There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners are at ease together. They hear not the voice of the taskmaster. The small and the great are there, and the slave is free from his master. Why is the light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter in soul, who long for death, but it comes not, and dig for it more than for hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly, and are glad when they find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in? For my sighing comes instead of my bread, and my groanings are poured out like water, for the thing that I fear comes upon me, and what I dread befalls me. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, but trouble comes. Eliphaz speaks. The innocent prosper. Now, remember, as we read through Eliphaz and the other friends of Job, these guys are bringing to us human wisdom, the thinking of the day, common knowledge of what they would think about who God is and how the universe works. tit for tat kind of thing. Like if you do good, God will give you good. If you do evil, God will give you evil. And so what these guys are about to say is the conventional thinking of the time, but it's not necessarily true. And that's important for us to remember. Even though everything in the Bible is not necessarily, and I've got to be careful the way that I say this, the Bible is true in all that it claims to be true in, but in some of the narrative stories, there's characters who speak untruths. And so we need to realize that. And the Bible is not saying that this is true, but you have to read the whole of the story to understand that. And so what we're about to read is conventional wisdom. It's a retelling of the story, but what he's saying would not be God's instructions to us on how to live our lives. And we realize that by reading the whole context of the book of Job. So just keep that in mind as we read through what we're about to go through. Eliphaz, the Temanite, answered and said, "If one ventures a word with you, will you be impatient? Yet, who can keep from speaking? Behold, you have instructed many, and you have strengthened the weak hands. Your words have upheld him who was stumbling, and you have made firm the feeble knees. But now it has come to you, and you are impotent. It touches you, and you are dismayed. Is not your fear of God your confidence, and the integrity of your ways your hope? Remember, who that was innocent ever perished? Or where were the upright cut off? As I have seen, those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. By the breath of God they perish, and by a blast of his anger they are consumed. The roar of the lion, the voice of the fierce lion, the teeth of the young lion are broken. And the strong lion perishes for lack of prey, and the cubs and the lioness are scattered. Now a word was brought to me stealthily. My ear received it, the whisper of it, amid thoughts from visions of the night, when deep sleep falls on men. Dread came upon me in trembling, which made all my bones shake. And a spirit glided past my face, and the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. There was silence. Then I heard a voice. Can mortal man be in the right before God? Can a man be pure before his Maker? Even in his servants he puts no trust, and his angels he charges with error. How much more those who dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is the dust, who are crushed like the moth. Between morning and evening they are beaten to pieces. They perish forever without anyone regarding it. Is not their tent cord plucked up within them? Do they not die, and that without wisdom? Call now, is there anyone who will answer you? To which of the holy ones will you turn? Surely vexation kills the fools, and jealousy slays the simple. I have seen the fool taking root, but suddenly I cursed his dwelling. His children are far from safety. They are crushed in the gate, and there is no one to deliver them. The hungry eat his harvest, and he takes it even out of thorns. The thirsty pant after his wealth. For affliction does not come from the dust, nor does the trouble sprout from the ground. But man is born to trouble, and sparks fly upward. As for me, I would seek God, and to God would I commit my cause, who does great things and unsearchable marvelous things without number. He gives rain on the earth and sends waters on the fields. He sets on high those who are lowly, and those who mourn are lifted to safety. He frustrates the devices of the crafty, so that their hands achieve no success. He catches the wise in their own craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are brought to a quick end. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope at noonday as in the night. But he saves the needy from the sword of the mouth, and from the hand of the mighty. So the poor have hope, and injustice shuts her mouth. Behold, blessed is the one whom God reproves. Therefore despise not the discipline of the Almighty. For he wounds, but he binds up. He shatters, but his hands heal. He will deliver you from 6 troubles. In 7 no evil shall touch you. And in famine he will redeem you from death. And in war from the power of the sword. You shall be hidden from the lash of the tongue, and shall not fear destruction when it comes. At destruction and famine you shall laugh, and shall not fear the beasts of the earth. For you shall be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with you. And you shall know what your tent is at peace, and you shall inspect your fold and miss nothing. You shall know also that your offspring shall be many, and your descendants as the grass of the earth. You shall come to your grave in ripe old age, like a sheaf gathers up in its season. Behold, this we have searched out. It is true. Hear and know for your good. All right, so essentially the guy tells him, the reason that you are getting so messed up is because you've sinned. and God is punishing you. That's kind of what he says here in chapter 4. And while that's possible, it's not necessarily true. And I preached about this in my sermon on Sunday. I was talking about sharing the gospel and proclaiming the mission of God. And just like we saw in Paul and Barnabas on their missionary journey, they were out sharing the gospel, and they faced opposition. They faced trouble. They faced hardship. Paul got stoned by people. He got kicked out of towns. He was ridiculed and hated. He was shipwrecked. He didn't have places to sleep. He was often beat and arrested and all these things. And you would think if it was this thing where good things happen when you serve God and bad things happen when you don't, then we would automatically think that what was happening to Paul meant that he was not doing what God wanted him to do. And that is so far from the truth. That Paul was serving God in a mighty way, in the way that God called him to do. And despite all that, he still faced hardship and opposition. And so one thing that we can take away from the book of Job as we go through it is, when you face adversity, when you face hardship, when you face sickness, when you face death, when you face all these types of things in your life, don't automatically assume that you've done something wrong and God is punishing you. That's conventional thinking, like this guy Eliphaz is telling Job, and it's the conventional thinking of our world, right? Like when something bad is happening to you, you're thinking like, oh, God must be mad at me. He's punishing me. I did something wrong, and that's not necessarily the conclusion that you should come to. And now it's possible you have done something wrong. I'm not saying that you didn't, but that's not the conclusion that you should come to. It's not necessarily, a one-for-one comparison. So let's read Job's response, and then we'll wrap it up. And then tomorrow we'll look at Bildad and what Bildad has to say to Job. Just more conventional wisdom that's not really going to help Job that much. Then Job answered and said, "Oh, that my vexation were weighed, and all my calamity laid in the balances, for then it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words have been rash. For the arrow of the Almighty are in me. My spirit drinks the poison. The terrors of God are arrayed against me. Does a wild donkey bray when he has grass? Or the ox low over his fodder? Can that which is tasteless be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the juice of the mallow? My appetite refuses to touch them. They are as food that is loathsome to me. Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would fulfill my hope, that it would please God to crush me, and that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. This would be my comfort. I would even exult in pain, unsparing, for I have not denied the words of the Holy One. What is my strength that I should wait? And what is my end that I should be patient? Is my strength the strength of stones, or my flesh bronze? Have I any help in me, when resource is driven from me? He who withholds kindness from a friend forsakes the fear of the Almighty. My brothers are treacherous in torrent bed, as torrential streams that pass away, which are dark with ice, and where the snow hides itself. When they melt, they disappear. When it is hot, they vanish from their place. The caravans turn aside from their course. They go up into the waste and perish. The caravans of Tema look. The travelers of Sheba hope. They are ashamed because they were confident, and they come there and are disappointed. For you have now become nothing. You see my calamity and are afraid. Have I said, make me a gift? Or from your wealth offer a bribe for me? Or deliver me from the adversary's hand? Or redeem me from the hand of the ruthless? Teach me, and I will be silent. Make me understand how I have gone astray. How forceful are upright words. But what does reproof from you reprove? Do you think that you can reprove words when the speech of the despairing man is wind? You would even cast lots over the fatherless and bargain over your friend. But now be pleased to look at me, for I will not lie to your face. Please turn. Let no injustice be done. Turn now, my vindication is at stake. Is there any injustice on my tongue? Cannot my palate discern the cause of calamity? Has not man a hard service on earth? And are not his days like the days of a hired hand? Like a slave who longs for the shadow, and like a hired hand who looks for his wages, so I am allotted months of emptiness, and nights of misery are appointed to me. And when I lie down, I say, when shall I arise? But the night is long, and I am full of tossing. till the dawn. My flesh is clothed with worms and dirt. My skin hardens, then breaks out afresh. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle and come to the end without hope. Remember that my life is a breath, and my eyes will never again see good. The eye of him who sees me will behold me no more, and while your eyes are on me, I shall be gone. As the cloud vanishes, so he who goes down to Sheol does not come up, he who returns no more to his house, nor does his place know him any more. Therefore I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I the sea, or a sea monster, that you set a guard over me? When I say my bed will comfort me, my couch will ease my complaint, then you scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that I would choose strangling and death rather than my bones. I loathe my life, and I would not live forever. Leave me alone, for my days are a breath. What is man that you make so much of him, and that you set your heart on him? Visit him every morning and test him every moment. How long will you not look away from me, nor leave me alone till I swallow my spit? If I sin, what do I do to you? You watcher of mankind, why have you made me your mark? Why have I become a burden to you? Why do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I shall lie in the earth, and you will seek me, but I shall not be. All right, so we're going to stop there. Arlie had a question, and then I want to say one thing. So one thing I want you guys to notice about Job's prayer here is, like, Job doesn't hold back. Like, he's just pretty honest with God about how he's feeling. And this is an okay way to pray. God is a relational being, and when we pray to God, and we can pray to him just like we would speak to any of our other friends or parents or brothers or sisters, and you can pour out your heart to the Lord, and he will hear you. He will hear you. So, yeah. All right, Arlie, let's see. She said, Job's 3 friends are good examples to us of bad friends who we shouldn't make. They only give Job worldly advice and not advice according to the Bible. Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, and then Brett said they're also good examples of the kinds of friends that we shouldn't be to others. Yeah, I think that's true, Brett. So often when things are happening in people's lives, sickness and things, so many people say the wrong thing because they feel like they need to say something. If you don't know what to say, you don't have to say anything, especially if somebody's sick or dying or anything. You could just say, I'm here for you, and I'm praying for you. You don't have to give them some kind of explanation on, like, why God's allowing this or something like that. And sometimes we want to, but we don't know sometimes. We don't know why things are happening. We just have to trust, like Job, and we'll get this when we get to the end of the chapter. We just have to trust that God is good, and he knows better than we do, and he's sovereign, and he has his hand on our lives, and he's going to walk us through anything that he allows to come into our lives. And he's going to help us to do that if we trust and lean on him. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me this morning. I'm going to mark off our sheet here. We've read the first 7 chapters of the book of Job. Tomorrow we will start in on chapter 8, and we will hear from Bildad, and he's going to give us some thoughts about why he thinks Job is suffering. And then we'll hear from his other friend, and then we'll get a 4th guy who shows up. And then finally, God is going to speak, and we'll hear directly from God, and that'll be the end of the book of Job. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me. I will see you tomorrow. Peace.